All right, so we're back now. What we have here on stage, we're back with our contested races in wards 2, 4, and 5. Ward 6 is a contested race between Jay Balea and Paula McLaughlin. Neither could join us tonight. I'm Stephen Leone, publisher of the Concord Monitor. I'm here with Michaela Tofigi, a reporter for the Concord Monitor. So our candidates are seated by ward. In Ward 2, Michelle Horn and Rob Kleiner. Ward 4, Sarah Beauregard and Karen McNamara. And Ward 5, Stacy Brown and Naomi Wierwille. I'm going to go down the list. Michelle, we're going to start with you to just introduce yourself, why you're running, and we're going to limit these to 90 seconds per person. And we'll go right on down the list.
Okay. Thank you for Concord Monitor and Concord TV for hosting this. My name is Michelle Horn. I'm a near 20-year resident of Ward 2. I have 3 daughters who have proudly been in Merrimack Valley School District since kindergarten. As a matter of fact, we've been there so long, they all went to half-day kindergarten, if you remember that. My oldest graduated in 2018 from MV. Her name is Ariana. She has since also graduated from UNH and quickly left the state, sadly, to get a job out west. My middle daughter, Annika, is a senior, and my youngest, Acadia, is a sophomore, still at MV. Watching my oldest leave New Hampshire was the impetus for me to run for city council. We're losing our bright and dynamic younger generation. We have to start making changes. I have 2 jobs. I'm a member and an office manager for the Electrical Workers Union here in Concord. I'm also an operations specialist for a software company in Switzerland. I'm at a point in my life where I'm blessed to have 2 jobs that believe in civic engagement and allow me the flexibility to be on city council. I bring this council a diversity and socioeconomic background and a voice for the working class. I've been endorsed by the Electrical Workers Union, the Iron Workers Union, and the AFL-CIO, who serves our teachers, firefighters, letter carriers, and many other fields. These organizations are backing me because they understand the importance of having a person with a voice with the working class at the table, and they believe in me being that voice. So I'm excited to bring my varied lived experiences to this council.
Hello, everybody. My name is Rob Kleiner. I'm running for Ward 2 City Council. I'd like to thank Concord TV, Concord High School, and the Concord Monitor, as well as Michelle and all the other candidates who are joining us on this stage. It is great to be back on this stage. I did graduate from Concord High. I've performed on this stage in bands and in theater groups, so it's great to be back here. I also am glad to see Concord Monitor here. They did give me my first job. I was a paper boy back in third through 6th grade, so thank you so much for that first job experience. Currently, I am the operations director at Northeast Delta Dental. I've been there for 11 years. Underneath me, I have the eligibility department, customer service department, provider services, and our auditing area. I have 2 kids and a lovely wife. My 2 kids attend Pennacook Elementary School, so I have both Concord experience in the Concord school system and the Merrimack Valley school system. My lovely wife, Holly, is a nurse. She's a member of the Teamsters Union Local 633. She's a nurse out at Merrimack County Nursing Home, where she often serves on COVID floors. Concord's been my home my entire life, 45 years that I've lived here. I love Concord. It is my home. I bring experience of serving on a lot of nonprofit boards in the Concord area. I serve on the board of Kimball Jenkins. I'm on the advisory board for NHTI, Red River Theater, and Concord Coalition to End Homelessness. I also serve on the Recs and Parks Committee here in the city. I also serve on a number of committees for finance and outreach and development and things of that nature, and various other nonprofits. I'm looking forward to working together and making Concord a better place. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sarah Beauregard. Thank you for the Monitor and the high school and CCTV for having us. I have been a Concord resident pretty much my entire life. Was born here, raised here, went to Concord High as well. I have been in Ward 4 for the last 14 years, I have 4 very active children. They attend Concord High School, middle school, and CMS. I'm very active in our community right now. I sit on a number of boards as well. I've been active in the Friends of Whites Park, hopefully to build a new playground sooner. I also sit on the board for the Concord Crush. I'm the treasurer there, and the Wrestling Booster Club for Concord High School as well. My parents have been extremely active in the community and have definitely instilled that in me as well.
Again, thank you to the Concord Monitor, Concord TV for sponsoring, and Sarah for joining in this race. I'm Karen McNamara, currently serving Ward 4. 16 years ago, our family moved and chose Concord for its small city charm with many outdoor destinations and recreational opportunities nearby. I hold a master's degree in curriculum and administration and have spent 20+ years teaching in urban and rural school districts. Also worked as the development director with the Crisis Center of Central New Hampshire. Growing up, my family taught me that giving back to our communities was just an expectation, something that we should all be doing. I continue to give back. In Concord, I was an online advocate on their 24-hour phone line service with the Crisis Center of Central New Hampshire. I tutored with new Americans with Second Start, and I served as an overnight winter shelter volunteer. Serving on boards of the Crisis Center of Central New Hampshire and Concord Babe Ruth Baseball, and being part of the Friends of White Park Committee, along with serving 2 years on City Council, gives me the experience to work with a diverse group of people to gain knowledge and be an effective part of our city government. And I've also been endorsed by the Concord Fire Department, so I look forward to the opportunity to serve my constituents again. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Stacy Brown. I am the current Ward 5 City Councilor. I'm a 14-year resident, an Army veteran, mom of 2, wife of a Concord police officer. I was born and raised here in New Hampshire. I attended Keene State College. My first job was as an English middle school teacher. I left that and became and enlisted in the Army as an Army, in the military intelligence, and became an Army sergeant. I then worked for the federal government as an intelligence officer and the NYPD as an intelligence analyst. We moved our family to Concord, to my home state of New Hampshire, but specifically Concord for the top-notch police department. I was working as a stay-at-home mom and immersed myself in the community, creating free and low-cost events that connected residents to each other, the environment, and experts. I am the current administrative assistant for the Concord Public Library Foundation, which is a group of volunteers dedicated to literacy and community. As the current Ward 5 City Councilor, I serve on 8 committees, and I involve myself in even more so that I have a more complete picture of Concord. The committees I serve on include Ad Hoc Gully Hill Road, Ad Hoc Outdoor Dining, Community Development Advisory Committee, Conservation Commission, Tree Subcommittee, Energy and the Environment Advisory Committee, Transportation Policy, and Parking. I am successful and effective as a city councilor, and I'm looking forward to continuing that role.
Thank you, Concord Monitor, and thank you, Concord High School. Thank you to my fellow candidates, and thank you, Stacy Brown, for your service to our country. My name is Noemi Weirwell, and I am running for Ward 5 City Council. I'm originally from Duluth, Minnesota. My dad was a nurse, and my mom is a nonprofit business manager for small organizations, and I'm so happy they are here tonight. Hi, Mom and Dad. I'm so glad you found seating. After visiting Concord for over a decade to spend time with extended family, I fell in love with this city. And we decided to move here 10 years ago, my husband Michael and my 2 kids, Vivian and Calvin, who attend Christa McAuliffe and Runlet. In my professional life, I'm a former teacher, former school leader, and have spent 16 years in education and nonprofit management. I currently serve as the Chief Learning Officer at Teach for America, where we recruit and support diverse leaders to teach in low-income communities. I'm running because so many of my fellow Ward 5 residents knew my commitment to public service and asked me to step up. I agreed with a lot of what I heard from my Ward 5 neighbors. We want a city councilor who can represent us on all department and city business, especially public safety and employee labor relations. Employee wages and benefits represent 73% of the city's budget. It's critical that Ward 5 has representation on these issues. To move anything forward, at least 8 city councilors must vote yes. We want representation who can work with the other councilors to build a shared agenda and move faster on pressing issues facing our city, especially supporting our unsheltered community and achieving our climate goals. We want representation that listens, promotes transparency, and holds high ethical standards for themselves and city government. I'm running because my community asked me to. I'm running because representation matters. And I'm running because good governance is a team sport.
Okay, so now we'll get into some questions for the candidates. We're going to start with you, Rob, and then work down the line to loop back to Michelle. The first one we're going to talk about is housing. So last night at the mayoral and at-large forums, the need for more housing was a repeated concern among candidates. What does providing additional housing look like in your ward specifically?
Sure, great question, thank you. As I mentioned, I'm on the board of directors at Concord Coalition to End Homelessness, so housing and homelessness is a cause that is dear to my heart. I think right now we have a rate of 0.3 for vacancy rate, which is not a good rate to have. We should be closer to 5, and some experts say as close to 10% vacancy rate. We have about 3,000 units that are going to be coming online in the next few years. That just scratches the surface on what we need. I think what we need to continue to do is to increase the number of housing units that we have available in Concord. That way we can combat 2 different things. That's one is housing our homeless, and then also making sure that people who are housing insecure are able to move into different places as opposed to being stuck where they might be.
Housing is definitely a shortage. Ward 4 is pretty dense. I mean, we don't have much room to grow for housing-wise, but as a city, I think the housing is definitely difficult. The city's definitely going to have to work with the people coming in to build these. We're going to have to work with them to kind of draw people in to build. Building's expensive, and I think that we can do a better job at it. We do have a ton of projects in the works, so I think that we have that potential. It's definitely getting there. That's going to be the difficult challenge, and I think that we can work well with a lot of commercial properties that want to come in and build.
Economic development must continue throughout making housing, but it has to be done in a mindful way. We can't just build housing throughout the entire city because that would hurt our infrastructure. Density is a huge factor in determining where we build properties. That's why I think we're looking out by the Monitor Way. We've done the railway, and we've got housing that's gone up about 500 units since 2020, but that's not nearly enough. And the 3,000 that are in the works is not going to be enough for the population that needs it. I think the biggest piece is to continue public and private partnerships. We know that one of our partnerships down at the railway, they have decided to put in 10 units specifically for those people who are working with the coalition. Those 10 will stay in that position, so if someone moves out, another person can move in and take that spot. And I think that if we get more businesses to want to partner with the coalition or social services to continue to provide more housing for those in need. And we need more than just single, we need family housing, and that those partnerships are what are going to really make a difference. That's it.
So I think in looking at that we have to look beyond just our ward. We have to look at the entire city. And when we look at the entire city, we're really looking at what kind of city do we want to be. Our master plan is outdated. It's dated 2008. I believe that we need to update the master plan to reflect our current values and the current situation that we're in. We need to prioritize ending homelessness, sustainability, and equity. When we do that, we are correcting wrongs that were made ages long before us, and we can address future challenges such as the climate. We have 3,016 units in development. We need to make sure that our infrastructure can support a network where folks in these units can access municipal resources in a sustainable way. That means more bike trails, more safe pedestrian walkways, possibly more public transportation routes. This will help us to work towards ending homelessness, which is solvable. We can do this, we make it a priority, and our zoning should then follow our master plan, which allows us to truly design the city that we want. And I'm very excited about doing that going forward. Thank you.
Will you say the question one more time?
Yeah, it was that housing was a repeated concern last night amongst mayoral and at-large candidates. And so what does adding more housing to the city look like in your ward specifically?
Okay, thank you. What I've heard from voters in Ward 5 is there is a desire for more flexible use of the space that they have. Folks would like to turn their homes into multifamily homes. Folks would like to shift zoning that they can, so that they can do things different. We'd like more family daycare in our ward. So the key thing I'm hearing from voters is flexibility that would be addressed through shifts in our zoning. That's going to require a lot of public input. Ward 5 has got areas that are really dense and areas that are really rural. But the main thing that we're hearing is more flexible use of the property that we have.
In Ward 2, I think it's imperative that the housing that we're getting in is of mixed income. We really need affordable housing, and I want to make sure that we're keeping an eye on that. I also want to make sure, I would sort of include Ward 1 with us as well in the Monterey Way project, since it does include Pennacook, that we're watching how this is affecting the services in that part of the city as well as the school system, and that we have people on the board that are keeping an eye on those two issues.
Great. So, Sarah, we'll start with you on this one. Property taxes keep going up, and it's really affecting people, especially those on fixed incomes. Broadening the tax base is always what's pointed to as a way to solve the tax rate, and until the tax base doesn't broaden. Can you point to anything specific within the budget that you would be open to cutting in the coming years?
It's a really great question. So I'm pretty new to the City Council. My knowledge of the budget is not as extensive as probably the rest of the candidates. My view on it was always kind of more to bring in the companies to help kind of take that burden off the homeowners, help with that. So that's more of mine, more of my view on it. Unfortunately, I don't have that knowledge base to really answer that question from how you asked, so.
No constituent has ever said to me when I knock on their door, could we cut some services? Instead, they always want more services, they want more return, and they always want recreational opportunities. So with that, we're seeing concerns and fears from my constituents with increased costs in groceries, rent, gas, and they're fearful of what is coming down the pipe in the next budget season, especially with the new garbage contract. I think, again, it just circles back around. How are we partnering with the public and private companies to help financial burdens? Because the city can't do it all. Bringing one thing we're talking about in solid waste, with this new contract, yeah, we had a sweet deal for the last 10 years, but it's not going to be as sweet as it was last time. But what can we do to lessen that cost? We've been working, the solid waste has been talking to Renew Compost and Black Forest Company on how we can eliminate 40 to 47% from our garbage, which would be removing food waste. This is already happening at Grapponi Conference Center, it's happening at Tucker's, and they're seeing really good success reducing that amount of waste. I'm not saying, and I don't have a specific thing I want to cut, because everything that we put into our budget is very thoughtful and for the best needs of our community. But I think there are ways that we can look at how we're doing things, how can we do them better, and I think that as we start with this new solid waste contract, there are things we're looking at now that will help us to maybe save money in a way that won't force us to spend so much. We also have, there's a new grant in the pipeline for businesses and municipalities, $1 million grant that you can apply for that will help you build this program if you don't already have one in place. So I think the city does a great job in finding grants, and the fact that there are grants for this is another way that we can help save some money, but not cut. I think that's it.
So all I hear frequently from residents who are on a fixed income that their property taxes are skyrocketing. And when you look at our budget, a third of our budget comes from property taxes. Another third comes from user fines and fees. I think that to offset the increases in property taxes, we can increase the fees for non-Concord residents are paying for municipal resources. And when I'm knocking on doors, talking to people, and they're concerned about taxes, the single item that they all discuss is the golf course. They are frustrated with how much of their tax dollars, how many of their tax dollars are going to a clubhouse, to the golf course, where we don't know exactly how many residents actually use it, where Concord residents do not get a better deal than non-Concord residents. They are outraged that we're spending $500,000 to design a clubhouse ahead of a new library, ahead of an ADA playground, ahead of a police station. They are wondering, and they asked at the last visioning session with the building committee, what are our priorities that we are building a multi-million-dollar clubhouse ahead of a middle school? So I would carefully examine the clubhouse, and I would like to see numbers. It has been said that its construction is going to start next year. Is that truly necessary?
The city's revenue primarily comes from property taxes and car registration. There are other revenue funds, so there are certain services that offset the costs by raising revenue, things like parking, things like the arena. So most of our revenue is coming from property taxes and car registration. In terms of how we spend money, 69% of the city's expenses go to public safety. These are your police force, your first responders, paramedics. 22% are general services, and about 13% is the debt service. These are capital projects we've already completed. Lowering the city's expenses would be lowering our services. I personally do not think we can do that with our public safety. We are already kind of under capacity. If you talk to a police officer or a fighter or a paramedic, they are working a lot. They are working overtime. So that's a place I don't think we can cut. In terms of general services, most constituents, this is your water, your paving, your plowing, my husband's favorite, leaf pickup. Most constituents, they want more, not less. So in order to pull back the level of service, I would be open to that, but it would require a lot of public input. And I think we would struggle to get consensus. I think the primary way we can reduce expenses is moving faster on our climate goals, things like solid waste and composting, and moving towards community power.
I would agree with Karen's and Stacy that we really would have a hard time cutting our expenses when a lot of it is general services and safety. I would like to look for money in other places, things like grants. If you look at the Merrimack River Greenway Trail, they've raised $650,000, and then I believe they got $1.3 million in grants. And I know the Concord Lake Sunapee Rail Trail has done the same in raising at least hundreds of thousands of dollars and hasn't taken any money from the city. So we know projects like this can happen within the city with grants and fundraising, and I would like to look at that as a way to do some of the more specialized projects that we want. I would like to look at money from the state. When Becky Whitley was speaking at the last council meeting, she explicitly said the state had a surplus of money. If you want something, ask for it now, because we might not have a surplus next time, so I say we ask for it. I would like to partner with the county to start sharing some of the expenses of the homelessness issue, because we are dealing with the large amount of the homelessness in the county directly in our city. I would look at the power and energy sources for the municipality. We were really late to the game in getting on the LED lights, which is a cost saving, and I think we need to get on the ball with solar so that we can further extend our cost saving there. And also on waste, I know when we did go to purple bags, we saved, I believe, 40% in tonnage of waste, so we know that people can be incentivized to save on waste, and we'll have to start going towards composting and things like that to move in that direction.
So this question assumes that there are services that we want to cut, and I agree with Noemi that anyone that I talk to, they don't want less services, they want more services. So I don't think the question is necessarily what we can cut, but how we can raise more tax revenue to pay for the services that we need. I think one area that we can look at is our waste. We can work as a community to reduce our waste output by education through things like backyard composting. I have a compost in my backyard. It's this little barrel and gives me some nice dirt to grow tomatoes in the summer. We can also work with other nonprofits such as the Northeast Resource Recovery Association. They're an organization that might be able to help us with our waste and reduce our costs there. Like Noemi said, most of our budget goes towards our safety of police and fire, and I don't think that's a place that we want to cut. Right now with our police force, they're short about 20 positions, depending on how you count. About 9 are in the academy to come out and fill some of those positions. So I don't think that's an area that we want to cut. And then as well as the employees, that's another majority of where our taxes go to pay for all of our services. So I don't think it's a matter of cutting. I think it's a matter of increasing the tax base. Also, we can look at the energy costs. We can look at the community power. I know there's a listening event that occurred at the council chambers, and there's another one happening Tuesday, November 14th at 6 p.m. at the Citywide Community Center on Canterbury Road up on the Heights. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. So this question will go to you, Karen, first. This is a reader question, and certainly, this topic has been debated for years. Would you support a Langley Parkway extension? And how would a Langley Parkway extension impact your ward?
Thank you. That's a great question. When I moved here 17 years ago, this was a discussion, and it was on the CIP at that point. I don't agree that we need Langley Parkway to get someone safely from their home to the hospital, because I am totally confident in our fire and ambulance EMTs that once they get on scene, they can stabilize and they will be taking care of that person until they get to the hospital. The biggest concern for my ward is that we have arteries that are being clogged. You have Washington Street, you have the small little streets of Bradley and Walker that hit Rumford, and we just had this discussion in a neighborhood last week that The traffic, the speed, kids coming from Concord High, coming from Bishop Brady, coming from the hospital, this is tearing up our neighborhood. And they also, along with that, have narrower streets, have cars parked on both sides. It is a safety issue, and that is one of my biggest priorities and my constituents' priorities. So we are becoming more dense. I mean, we are building more. We want to provide more housing. This is our goal right now. If we don't grow, we don't become better, and we're going to be growing. So I feel that there needs to be more discussion around putting Langley Parkway in, and we're going to have discussions with every community, not just one or two.
Thank you. So Langley Parkway was a solution to a problem 60 years ago. It was what was imagined that the city would look like 60 years into the future. That's not where we are. There are curb cuts. The city has changed in ways that they couldn't have predicted 60 years ago. So rather than keep asking, should we put Langley in, or should we take it out? Let's reimagine our entire city, and let's really focus on sustainable transportation. Let's look at where these new housing units are going, and let's look at how we can create the best trail system so that people can use bikes, or they can walk, or they can access public transportation to get all around the city so that we're not car dependent. We want to move away from fossil fuels. We don't want to be dependent on vehicles, and actually that would help us with our zoning. If we can have more public transportation, more trails near residences, we will not need to have parking spaces. I'm on the parking committee, and we are constantly dealing with folks who want even more parking because they have more than 2 vehicles. So I think we need to really examine what we want our city to look like. We should come together to create that master plan and not look at should we have this road or that road. Because you know what? Dunbarton Road was a through road before, and now it's not. So maybe we should look at opening that up. But let's start with looking at the entire city and making it sustainable.
So Langley Parkway Extension is in Ward 5, and it's been really great connecting with voters because they have different thoughts. We have some traffic challenges in Ward 5 that I hope we can resolve in the next 2 years. A lot of that is due to the high school and the hospital. It's very, very busy on certain streets, especially at the end of the school get out. So I think we need to continuously look at ways in which we modernize our city, that we preserve our green space, but we also make steady flow and easy transportation, especially through our neighborhoods. The hospital is the only one in the city, so it's not just a Ward 5 issue, it's actually an issue for all of Concord, and it's something that we're going to need to continue to think about.
I would say that I have not heard from anybody when I've been out canvassing or talking to the community that has brought up the Langley Parkway. I just don't think it's an issue that exists. I have personal knowledge of being on the Pennacook side. I went into labor with 2 children on Borough Road in Pennacook, and I can tell you that I went through Carter Hill to the hospital and made it in plenty of time without any issues. So I don't think that the issue is really there. I think our money would be better spent with the very large developments coming in, possibly coming in Monitor Way and the Steeplegate Mall, in the traffic studies and congestion and things that are going to happen there. I think that's where we need to concentrate in other parts of the city.
I actually took that same drive with my wife when she was pregnant going up Carter Hill, so we made it that way as well. And we actually stayed at the hospital for another like 10 hours worth of labor, so we had lots of time to get there. But I think that the ultimate thing that we need to do is we need to make a decision. We can't be talking about this every 6 months, every year on whether we're going to do it or not. We need to make a decision, say we are going to move forward with this project or we're not going to be moving forward with this project, so that we can start doing other development around there, whether it's at the end of Langley Parkway with some development or if it's with trails and infrastructure in the land that's there. I think the response time of the hospital is important. I would want to see more studies to see if it did increase the response time, but ultimately we just need to make sure that we're making a decision so we can move forward.
So I grew up in Ward 5 by the high school. I'm pretty well versed in the traffic patterns that are up there. My parents still live there. Ward 4 is pretty congested. We have a lot of streets that definitely have some issues. Whether or not Langley needs to be moved forward or put to bed is kind of, I think I agree with Stacy that our master plan kind of needs to be redone. We need to reevaluate the flow of the city and the uses of our streets now that we have before we add to it. It is definitely a problem up by the high school with the hospital and everything. Ward 4, we have a lot of congestion coming from the hospital and the high school as well. So it's definitely, I think it needs to be addressed, but as a master plan and a review on the flow of the traffic that we currently have.
Okay, with this question, we'll start with Stacy, and it's about city diversity. So ward counselors often identify residents to sit on city boards and commissions. So how do you get to know your neighbors and identify leaders in your ward?
Could you just say the last part of that again?
How do you get to know your neighbors in your ward and identify leaders?
And identify their
Leaders in the ward.
The leaders in my ward. Well, I go out and I talk to folks. I have 2 dogs. I'm a runner. I bike, so I like to get out and talk to people. I found early on that our committees were lacking in a lot of different perspectives. And having been an intelligence officer, I know that we need to get information from all different areas so we have a complete picture and can make the best decision. When we don't have those voices at the table, we are missing out and we're not making the best decision. So I'm intentional. When I knew that we didn't have any diversity, we didn't have any members from across the river, from the Heights, from the Jennings Drive area, I talked to different people. I would go to events and seek them out and talk to them and ask them if they would be involved. In a committee, I actually went to a religious service. It was wonderful, and I was available. I made myself available to the community, and I spoke with some of the residents after the service, and I just talked to them about what it was being a city councilor, what some of the committees were available. And I had a gentleman, and his wife was kind of pushing him, and he said, you know, he really wanted to be involved in the city. He just didn't know how. So I think as city councilors, we need to be accessible, we need to be available, we need to put ourselves out into the community and reach out in every way we possibly can.
I'll answer this a little bit differently because I think we all are committed to being involved in outreach in our communities. The Concord should be very proud of its extensive committees that support the City Council. There's hundreds of people that volunteer, and if you sit on one of those committees, thank you. In the past, you know, the default posture has been if people want to volunteer, you know, they raise their hand, the city's charter, the mayor appoints them. There's usually an opportunity for public comment. I think there's an opportunity to just clarify some and add some process moving forward. A simple statement where people articulate why they want to serve, maybe a resume, maybe a reference, would create the accessibility and transparency for all residents to participate. With respect for diversifying our committees, I've spent a lot of my career thinking about how we build a more diverse teacher force, and that would start with us identifying the aspects of folks' background and identity that we want to represent, whether that's military status, racial background, ethnic background, gender, and then we need to actually collect that data. We never want to assume anyone's ethnic or racial background based on their appearance, and we want to give people the opportunity to self-identify. So that's something that we could do as we think about the processes for people to apply and raise their hand. That will give us a clear sense of the representation on our committees, how we feel about that, whether that reflects our values, and then take steps to reduce barriers for people to participate.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, it was that city ward counselors often identify people to serve on boards and commissions. And so how do you get to know your neighbors and identify leaders in your ward?
I obviously volunteer a lot in my ward, and I think a lot of my volunteerism has been in the school system, being on the PTO, involved in sports, things like that. And also, I think the biggest thing was working at the polls every year. I've met so many different diverse people, and it's exciting to see everyone come out and vote. I think through education would be the best way. During COVID, I was having a hard time understanding how our school board meetings were working, and a wonderful educator in Ward 1, Carissa Coro, held a Zoom learning session with our moderator from the Merrimack Valley School District and just taught us how school board meetings work, because some of us who aren't in politics don't understand that. And I think that would be a way that I would like to reach out and help invite people to that sort of education and identify the people that would be good leaders that way.
So as I mentioned, I've lived in Concord for 45 years, so I know a lot of my neighbors, be it from high school or any of my volunteer activities, from Girls on the Run or being on the United Way Grant Review Committee, a number of different things. So I've met a lot of my community that way. I've also taken classes in leadership in Concord. One of them is called Leadership Concord. There are a number of people in the audience today who are graduates of that class. It's a class that teaches you all about Concord leadership, how to serve on city council, what education is like in our town. So that does a great job of identifying leaders. So I have a network of people there, a lot of people in this audience that would be perfect for leadership roles. I've also taken Leadership New Hampshire, same type of class, but for a broader base. A lot of Concord people have taken that class as well. And there's another class that I've taken, which is called Hoffman-Haas, which is a program put on by New Hampshire Center for Nonprofits that teaches you how to serve on nonprofit boards, much like the city council. And that is a great class, that I have a lot of classmates from that would be great people to tag for leadership roles. I've also been out in my community the last few days, few weekends, out in the rain and everything, knocking on doors, meeting my people in Ward 2. So I think just with that connection, and anytime anybody in my ward wishes to reach out to me, they always can. They can identify leaders to me. If you want to call me or email me, all that information is out there. My number is 603-491-2902, so feel free to call me or text me.
So I've lived here as well my whole life, and I know a good chunk of my neighbors and community members. I've lived in Ward 4, Ward 5, and I could probably list a good amount of people that I would think would be excellent leaders in my community. I sit on a number of boards, I volunteer with a lot of committees, and just talking to the people that are participating with those boards, other parents that are like my kids playing soccer, talking to the other parents, I'm out in the community a lot. I do a lot of events. Actually, one of the events is where I met Stacy. We happened to bike downtown together and met at an event, and I met a lot of those local people. Some of them lived in my community that I didn't know. So it's just doing those type of events, meeting the people in our neighborhoods, really helps us become better leaders and help us kind of make the problems in our wards more kind of letting people know what they are.
I think it's incredibly important as leaders and volunteers who are participating in groups and sitting around a table to look around that table and to think about who might be missing from this table, who has a really good voice or something that they could add to this participation. That's really important. I do think that the city has been doing a better job and continues to, during our priority sessions in December, to talk about the human resources partnerships with CircleWorks, who reaches out to not only the city, they reach out to New Hampshire, they reach out farther to New England, Vermont, Maine. That's incredibly important to keep that process going, to find new people not just from Concord. And I think, too, it might sound a little bit silly, but are we designating maybe a month that's get to know your city council or get to know your Ward 4, shadowing, inviting someone in your community who they really like, are into composting, they're really into, they want downtown dining to change. Hey, come to a committee meeting with me. Would you like to hear about it? We should be tapping into the sources that we have in our wards, for example, my ward, and inviting them to come with me to a committee meeting.
Okay, I think we're ready for closing statements. Really, just why should voters or residents in your ward vote for you? And feel free to add any issues of priority that we haven't discussed. Michelle, why don't we start with you and go on down the list?
Sure, thank you. I bring a diversity of thought and socioeconomic background. I bring lived experiences that come from all walks of life. I've been deeply involved in the Pennacook community for decades. I do want to stress that before deciding to campaign for this position, I knew nobody currently on city staff or serving on the city council, aside from working with Brent on the Safe Routes to School committee many, many years ago. I have no allegiances to any board member, and I will vote with the voice of the community without deference to existing relationships to board members. I have a unique experience of overseeing the financial operations for multiple intertwined businesses, the IBEW union, the union apprenticeship school that we run, and our function facility. While each has its own business, I have to make sure that they are all financially sound, which means making concessions in some part of the building to make up for projects that we want in other parts of the building. This gives me the necessary perspective to analyze a city budget where there is need to have multiple departments with separate budgets, but also have one integrated financial plan. At last, I am willing to put my own personal needs aside so that I can listen to and communicate with both the Pennacook and community members. And I am excited to collaborate with our entire community to be an effective voice for us all.
Again, my name is Rob Kleiner. I really want to thank the Concord Monitor, Concord TV, and Concord High School for having us here today. I would also like to thank Councilor Earl Pierce for his years of outstanding service. He's not running for Ward 2, which gives us the opportunity to run. So I'm very thankful for his service for our ward. He's done a great job the last number of years. I'm also proud to be endorsed by Earl for my run. I'm also proud to be endorsed by the Firefighters Union, Local 1045. I'm very proud about that. I bring experience on nonprofit boards to the council, a number of nonprofit boards. I also have served as treasurer over multi-million-dollar budgets. I serve in my current job as operations director, also over large budgets and large number of people making lots of decisions. So I'm hoping that I can secure your vote on November 7th. So thank you very much.
My name is Sarah, again, and I really hope for you to come out and vote for me, Ward 4. My goal has always been to be a strong example for my children, which is part of why I'm running. I grew up in this city. It's great. I love the community that we have here and the changes that have come with that community. It has grown incredibly strong, and it's really a great community. It's been 41 years, and I hope to help that community develop into just a more amazing place for my children to grow up, and hopefully they stay.
Again, I'm Karen McNamara, the current Ward 4 City Councilor. In the end, we all want the best for Concord. And so we all find ways to give back, whether it's our time, ideas, supporting events, calling our city councilors with questions and complaints, learning from our differences and agreeing to disagree on many issues. But without that, we can't continue the conversations in deciding what needs to be changed, what needs to be improved, what's going really well. I will continue with my priorities. Supporting public safety through recruitment and retention is very important to me. Expanding the tax base while holding the line on property taxes, while fostering a community of belonging and inclusiveness. I encourage everyone to get out and vote. And please continue to support me in Ward 4. Vote for Karen McNamara. Thank you.
Again, I'm Stacy Brown, and I'm running for a second term. I have been successful and effective city councilor for my residents in listening to their concerns, working with city staff to achieve the goals that they have. In some cases, I've had to go to the state to find a resolution for residents, and I'm happy that I'm able to do that, to spend the time investing in my residents. I will continue to serve on multiple boards, learn as much as I can. I believe in investing in social infrastructure, parks, pools, libraries, safe sidewalks, trails, so that we can meet and connect with each other. And unlike my opponent, I have been very transparent about recusing myself and with the connections that I have. When I meet with my voters, I address their concerns. My opponent is on one committee, and she doesn't even mention it on her website, the Golf Building Committee. She doesn't mention it to residents, and this is a concern. If you are not transparent with your residents, how can they trust that you're going to handle their issues? Thank you.
We live in an increasingly unpredictable time. We need a city government that is responsive and resilient, and that means we need leaders that operate with humility, that listen, that explore divergent views, that build consensus, and then swiftly take action as a member of a team. I've demonstrated the leadership skills that are required to make meaningful progress on pressing issues facing our community. I work nationally and support leaders across 40 different cities, all working towards shared goals to make progress and build their capacity to work alongside others. I also serve locally on boards as a coach with Parks and Rec and on the ad hoc building advisory committee for the Beaver Meadow Golf Course. If you haven't heard me talk about that, I'm happy to share more. It's been an incredible process, and it's an example of Concord at its best, where we take input, we listen to our community, and we learn so much about, and in the end, that project will transform what was a golf course to a community center and make it accessible for many, many more residents. If you're watching, thank you. There's one other thing. I don't have any conflicts of interest. I don't work locally, and I can represent Ward 5 on all of the city's business. I haven't had to recuse myself because there is no conflict of interest. Now, if you're watching, thank you for your engagement and your civic participation. Municipal government, it touches your life in so many ways. Only 17% of us typically vote in a municipal election, so thank you for getting to know all of us, and thank you for your intention to vote, and please talk to your neighbors and encourage them to vote too.
Okay, well, that wraps up the first half of our ward forum. I'd like to thank all the candidates, and we'll be back in a few minutes with races for wards 7 through 10. So if you're in those races, please come on down. Thank you.